Mr Speaker, I commend this bill to the House.
Mr Speaker.
I call Dennis O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. New Zealand First will support this bill, but with some reservations. And I'd like to begin by firstly recommending a more descriptive title: the John Banks Honesty, Transparency and Accountability in Local Government Candidacy Memorial Bill. A title that, fittingly, nobody will remember. Mr Speaker, New Zealand First will be happy to support the main provisions of the bill, and I'll go on to mention some of those parts that we have some concern about. But first of all, we do think that there is some good sense in what a large amount of the bill covers. First of all, Clause 5, allowing territorial authorities and regional councils to make minor alterations to boundaries, is very sensible. Especially, we like the idea that it would go to the local government commission first to uphold them. That's a good check on whether those alterations would be suitable. Similarly, we agree with Clause 8, under which communities of interest must be considered by the territorial authority or regional council and required to specify the ratio of population to proposed members for each proposed ward. And again, Clause 10, in which there are two situations added in which wards and subdivisions of a community may be defined, either by dividing a community of interest between wards or subdivisions, or by uniting them within a ward or subdivision, two or more communities of interest with few commonalities of interest. So those are two situations where special attention should be paid to communities of interest. Again, reference to the Commission is a good idea. We agree also with the new Clause 21 to insert a new Section 73A to add a power to adjourn an electoral process by order in council in certain situations. And those, of course, are the sorts of situations that we found in Christchurch. It didn't actually require any action there because there was no local government election at that time, but it could have happened that way and it would have been necessary for some action to be taken. This provision will make it possible for up to 6 weeks deferral for any of the important dates for an election to be made. And that's just common sense, so we're glad to see that there as well. But some of the provisions we have some concerns about. And the first of those do relate to the vexed area of donations and expenses under Part 5. I might say, first of all, that one of the omissions that I see here, and is also in the Electoral Act for general elections, is the omission in respect of loans made in the same sorts of circumstances as a donation, loans that are not repaid or forgiven before election day. These, I believe, should be recorded as a donation as well, because it's simply too easy through the mechanism of making a loan to get around some of these requirements. So that's something I would like to see the government look at as part of this bill before it goes too much further. I'd like to also refer to the new Section 103A, where it does refer to the circumstances which may be reasonably expected for a candidate to know whether a person has made an anonymous donation or not. And the words reasonably expected need to be taken seriously. They have not been, I believe, by some members opposite, and they should be. And so we hope that those words will be sufficient for the purpose. We will wait and see. We disagree, however, with the new Section 103A(b), where it refers to goods or services being provided to a candidate or to any person on the candidate's behalf under a contract at 90% or less of their reasonable market value. And we say that it would be difficult to prove such a value, and that a 10% discount is really not a donation and shouldn't be regarded as such. That's one of the things I think that should come out of the bill. It's just not practical, and it's certainly not necessary. I'd like to move on to the new section 103E and certain other sections of the same kind, which refer to penalties. We in New Zealand First believe that a $5,000 penalty for offences such as intentionally concealing the identity of a donor is insufficient and should be at least $20,000. And that is certainly not a large enough fine to be a deterrent. The same applies to section 103G for a person concealing the identity of a donor. That's too low at $5,000, should be at least $20,000 as well. Similarly, section 103I, that should be $20,000 and not $5,000. These are all the sorts of offences which really do need a heavy deterrent, and $5,000 just doesn't get there. Another one is the new section 112D, filing a false return. That requires a stronger deterrence as well, and New Zealand First says $20,000 and not $10,000, or in B, $5,000. Neither of those are anywhere near sufficient. So, Mr Speaker, New Zealand First will be happy to support the bill, but we would like to debate further some of those provisions that I have mentioned, and especially the inadequacy of the penalties which have been provided under some of those sections which I have mentioned.
Call Dr Jackie Blue.
I'm very pleased to speak to the first reading of the Local Electoral Amendment Bill number 2. It will